What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Thursday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, or if you're joining us on the YouTube channel, your first watch every day. Well, we've waited long enough. It is finally time for Herd Mentality, the weekly episode where you control the discussion and what we talk about today on the podcast. We have a ton of great questions to dig into. Let's get started. The first one comes from John, who says, love the offense video pod today. I had asked about offensive line blocking schemes last week. Based on the O-line makeup, new and existing players, do you anticipate more zone blocking? How do you project tight end usage with the offensive line having Cook in the backfield or split out will make some personnel so multiple? I like this question a lot. And all of the signs point to the Bills running a more zone-based run scheme. When you think about the influences on this coaching staff, when you think about the makeup of the personnel, it all suggests zone blocking run scheme. And something that really stands out is just how much more athletic the Bills' offensive line is in 2021 compared to 2022. And this is a nice little teaser for what we're going to do tomorrow on the podcast, where if you guys recall last year, I went through and I talked about the athleticism of the Bills, and I ranked all of the players on the roster in terms of athleticism. And I'm going to do that again tomorrow on the podcast. But today we'll get a little bit of a teaser on that because I went through and did this for the offensive line this year versus last year. And you will see that the 2022 Buffalo Bills offensive line is a lot more athletic than the 2021 version. So in 2021, the Bills' week one starting offensive line was Deion Dawkins, John Feliciano at left guard, Mitch Morse at center, Cody Ford at right guard, and Darrell Williams at right tackle. And I want to give you the relative athletic scores, the RAS, if you will, for each of those players. And again, a 10 is a perfect RAS. And we'll talk about this a whole lot more tomorrow, but just know that a 10 is perfect. So last year, Dawkins, 8.8, Feliciano, 3.2, Morse, 9.57, Cody Ford, 6.33, and Darrell Williams, 2.53. That's an average of 6.08. In 2022, this offensive line is unbelievably athletic. Dawkins, 8.8. Roger Saffold, 8.61, up from Feliciano, who was a 3.2. Mitch Morse, 9.57. Ryan Bates, also a 9.57, up from Cody Ford, who was a 6.33. And then Spencer Brown, who's a perfect 10. And Darrell Williams was the right tackle last year at a 2.53. So the average this year, 9.31 in terms of what I project the Bills' starting offensive line to be compared to a 6.08 last year. This offensive line is significantly more athletic, and that will show up with, I think, how this team wants to run the football using the lateral mobility and the range of this group to run a zone offense. So that's my anticipation. I do anticipate more 12 personnel. I do think there's going to be some really fun personnel groupings where, like, imagine this. You can put 4 receivers on the field and 1 running back. You can go 10 personnel. And then that running back could be James Cook, and you motion him out, and all of a sudden you're empty. Or you can go 11 personnel with Knox and Cook on the field, and they could start out as regular tight end and running back, and you can then motion them out, and all of a sudden you went from 11 personnel to empty. It's really exciting, the possibilities based on the versatility of the Bills' weapons. There's going to be a lot more versatility and variety when it comes to the personnel groupings with this offense. At least there's certainly the potential for that to be the case. Next one comes from Tom, who says, who do you view as the backup to Mitch Morse should he go down? My buddies and I have spent time discussing this and landed on 2 options. Option 1, Ryan Bates, who seems to have the most experience on the team, but it could potentially create a second hole on the line if Bates ends up starting at guard. And option 2, Greg Manns or Ike Bacher, but we're not sure how much experience either had at center. Thanks for all you do. I think the Bills' backup center is Greg Manns, who has 1,616 snaps at center for his career, in addition to 805 at right guard and 110 at left guard. Ryan Bates is certainly an option. Ike Bacher, once he's healthy, is certainly an option. But the good news is the Bills have 4 players that all have center experience in Mitch Morse, Greg Manns, Ryan Bates, Ike Bacher. Now, the Bills could opt for Ryan Bates to be the center, and then you bring in Tommy Doyle or Cody Ford at guard. But one thing that I think I've learned about the way I perceive this team compared to a lot of people is that I feel like I'm more comfortable with the offensive line depth than most people. I like David Quessenberry as a swing tackle. I like Tommy Doyle. I like Craig Manns. I like Cody Ford in this environment. Ike Bacher as well. I'm pretty satisfied with this group, and I think the Bills have good depth at every position, including the center spot. Phil says your comments on Wednesday's pod yesterday regarding Matt Hawk continuing to take all of Tyler Bass's snaps got me, 1, worried, and 2, thinking about other potential holders already on the roster. Any chance Case Keenum could be the holder? Is anyone else a possibility? No. The only possibility to be the holder is the punter, unless the Bills roster a holder only. There's no possibility in today's NFL that a backup quarterback or a wide receiver, or running back, or anybody that's not a punter would be the holder. It's too much of a specialized role that requires too much chemistry with the kicker. You can't be pulling Case Keenum or Isaiah McKenzie or Khalil Shakir or insert whatever non-punter into the holder spot. It's not what the NFL does anymore. This shifted a few decades ago, and it's just how it has to be. There's too much chemistry required, too much specialization required for you to be using non-punters as holders. Those guys spend all their time together. It's like a little fraternity of specialists. You always see them together, and it has to be that way. And so it's either Matt Araiza handles both the punting and holding duties, or Matt Araiza is the punter and the Bills roster Matt Hawk is the holder, or Matt Hawk just does both. I think those are your 3 options for the Buffalo Bills holder position, and I think it's important for us to eliminate any possibility that a player like Case Keenum or a non-punter would handle the holding job. That is just not what is done in the NFL anymore, and has not been that way for a long, long time. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. You can create the perfect engagement ring of her dreams. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Each ring is one of a kind. Or maybe you just want to celebrate life's special moments with fine jewelry. If you're looking for fine jewelry but having trouble choosing, don't worry. Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moments sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement rings. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace. Go to BlueNile.com today. No business owner wants to deal with the hassle of energy decisions. You just want your business to run smoothly and pay a fair rate for power. But coming off the back of one of the highest price winners in the last decade, if your business was on a purely variable or market rate, you paid out the nose. Many New York business owners switch suppliers out of frustration, but unless they chose alternative pricing options, they're still at risk for a January repeat. Catalyst Power partners with you or your trusted energy consultant to produce a power supply plan that fits your business and your market risk tolerance. They have a suite of options customizable to your business's needs, including options that bundle with or focus on renewable energy. Right now in New York, they're offering an on-site solar solution for your business that requires zero installation, maintenance, or material purchase costs. That's right, no CapEx costs for you. To sweeten the deal, qualified businesses could be eligible for up to 6 months of at-cost energy supply from Catalyst Power. Go to catalystpower.com/lockedonbills to learn more. The next one today comes from Tatanka, who says, great minds are abundant in the Bills' offensive meeting rooms, but only one can call plays on Sunday. Ken Dorsey has never done that. Dorsey is obviously a great football mind, but do we trust him to communicate the perfect play to Josh's helmet on 4th and goal against the Chiefs in the championship game? On a side note, do you think he plays Madden? Granted, it's a video game, but it's a way to expose yourself to on-field game situations and where your mind goes on pressure situations. How will this offensive staff deal with potential bad play calls by Coach Dorsey? Well, there's a lot that I can say here. First of all, Brian Daboll also had bad play calls. Ken Dorsey is going to have bad play calls, but is it bad play calls or is it bad execution? It's always a fun question to consider whenever a play doesn't work out. But here's what's most important to me. Play calls are very much the result of the game plan and what's scripted throughout the course of the week. You develop a play sheet, and it's all your calls for all your down and distances and circumstances. And that play sheet is developed by the offensive coaching staff and, of course, Josh Allen. And more importantly, Josh Allen has full autonomy at the line of scrimmage to do whatever he wants. So if that play call comes in and Josh gets to the line of scrimmage and it's not the right play call against the look that he's given, Josh will change the play. And so every team has to deal with the possibility of bad play calls. The Bills aren't immune to that. I think we feel some type of way because Ken Dorsey's a first-time play caller, and obviously this offense has expectations to be elite. But I go back to what goes into developing what plays are available to be called, and the fact that Josh Allen's involved both in that process and in the process of actually going through the cadence and being at the line of scrimmage and calling that play and allowing it to be the play that's called against that look. So, yes, it's a possibility, but I don't think it's any more of a possibility with this Bills team as it is for any other team across the entire NFL. Alex says, one of my favorite sayings of yours is that don't pay players for what they have done, pay players for what they're going to do for you. That phrase seems to be at odds with your position that the Bills should try to re-sign Jordan Poyer to a market value extension. How many 32-plus-year-old first-team All-Pro safeties have there been? I understand we are in our Super Bowl window, but if that comes at the expense of keeping Dawson, Knox, Ed Oliver, or Tremaine Edmunds, is it worth it? If Poyer and Hyde have been one of the league's best safety tandems, but McDermott and Frazier have also shown the ability to get more out of less with the secondary, why not just let them play? Why not just let him play out his contract, leave the next season, and replace him with a rookie, hoping to get a comp pick in exchange? Well, I think, Alec, I've wanted two things here. I've continuously said that I want as much Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde as I possibly can. But I've also said that the priority should be young players that were draft picks. And so I agree with you that I would keep Dawson Knox, Ed Oliver, and Tremaine Edmunds over Jordan Poyer. So both things are true when it comes to me. Now, if you force me to pick, I'm going to go with the young players that were draft picks. But I think what Jordan Poyer has going for him is, despite his age, he's really only been a starter since he came to Buffalo in 2017. And he takes great care of his body. And so he's a player that I feel comfortable with how he's going to age. Now, I'm not paying him until he's 36, 37, 38, but if you want to tack two years onto his deal, sign me up for that. That's what I'm thinking about when it comes to a Jordan Poyer extension. Add 2 years and $24 million to his deal. I mean, Tyrann Mathieu just got 3 years, $33 million. Would Jordan Poyer take that? Mathieu has a better resume than Poyer. So that's what I'm thinking about with the extension. And I know that there's some hard decisions to be made coming up here, but I would prioritize Knox, Oliver, and Edmunds over Jordan Poyer. And I've commented extensively on Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott and John Butler's ability to develop defensive backs. So I definitely want it all, and I also recognize that I can't have it all. And I've also said that, hey, keep the young players that are draft picks over Jordan Poyer at this point in his career, despite how much I love him. So we'll see how this all plays out. And maybe the best plan is for Jordan Poyer to just play out this season, let him walk, and prioritize his replacement next year in the draft or in free agency. And then, look, should we be sleeping on Saron Neal as a possibility there? What about DeMar Hamlin? Jaquan Johnson, excuse me. I think there's some internal options for us to consider there as well. But here's the challenging part is that, did Jordan Poyer just have his best season? Did Hyde and Poyer just have their best season together? What signs do we have that they're slowing down? I don't think there's any. So it's complicated, and I want it all. I want all these players to be here forever, but I understand that that's not realistic. Mark says, if we could get Dawson Knox to sign the same deal as David Njoku, are you on board? I feel like last year alone, Knox showed more promise than Njoku ever has. I'm scared that if we wait for another prove-it year for Knox, the price gets much higher. 100% agree with you, Mark. 100% agree. First of all, yes, give him the Njoku deal and see if he takes it. And second of all, yes, I would also agree that David Njoku's breakout season last year pales in comparison to what Dawson Knox demonstrated. And so Njoku signed a 4-year, $54.7 million contract with the Browns, $11.5 million signing bonus, $28 million guaranteed, an average annual salary of $13.6 million. Yes, pay Knox that right now, because if Knox replicates what he did this past season, which I think he's going to do, and I think he's going to have more targets his way, it's going to be even more expensive. And there's a lot of good young tight ends in the NFL right now. You want to set the market and not chase the market. And I think prioritizing a deal for Dawson Knox should be a high priority for Brandon Beane. Ty says, your GM for a day, you can only pay one of these two, Dawson Knox or Ed Oliver. Who are you picking and why? Picking Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver plays the premium position, defensive tackle. They're more important than tight ends. And I recognize that the Bills have literally never had a high caliber tight end. But in this binary situation where I can only have one of the two players, Dawson Knox or Ed Oliver, I'm picking the player that plays the more impactful position. And I think about replaceability. Would it be easier for the Bills to find a dynamic 3 technique or a dynamic tight end? I think in this world of football, it's easier to find the dynamic tight end than it is the dynamic 3 technique. So I'm keeping Ed Oliver. It's very close. I love both players, but if you're going to pin me down and say I can only have one, I'm going with Dawson Knox. Or excuse me, I'm going with Ed Oliver. I messed that up here. Ed Oliver over Dawson Knox in this binary situation. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions like, is your Odyssey an LX or an EX, and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You have access to rockauto.com at home in your pocket. Save time and save money when using Rock Auto. Why would you choose to spend 30%, 50%, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? They have everything you can need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Make sure you write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box so they know that we sent you? They have amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need over at rockauto.com. We got a few more to get to today. The next one comes from Billy, who says, objectively, who do you like better for the next 8 to 10 years for your franchise quarterback, Josh Allen or Justin Herbert? I asked the question because Justin just overtook Josh for MVP betting favorite. When I talk to my non-Bills friends, I'm always defending my Josh pick for best franchise guy out there, and they say Herbert. These discussions usually happen in New York City, so they may be biased to, AKA jealous, but always like your takes and ability to be objective where maybe my bias does interfere here. So curious who you'd like to have between those two or really any young quarterback in the league for the next 10 years. Well, yeah, I think, first of all, your buddies are definitely taking the position of playing down your option and playing up the other option. I think that's what friends do, right? It's kind of joke around and take jabs at each other. But I'm taking Josh Allen over Justin Herbert. And I know that Justin Herbert still has to have his year 3 season, and Justin Herbert's first 2 seasons were way better than Josh Allen's first 2 seasons. But I think that's kind of the question with Herbert. Is he's unbelievably physically gifted, right? He's dynamic. He's awesome. He's probably the next guy right after Josh. You pick Herbert. But if it's, again, you're pinning me down to an either or thing, I'm taking Josh. The question with Herbert is, does he have that it factor to take over, right? Like, I know he can do anything on the field, but can he be that guy that is going to always be the reason why you win playoff games every single year? I think he's always going to be a statistically outstanding quarterback. I think he's going to make unbelievable plays all the time. I think he's probably going to win a Super Bowl. He's an unbelievable young player. But I'll take the makeup of a Josh Allen over Justin Herbert. I've seen Josh Allen lead 7 consecutive scoring drives in the playoffs against Bill Belichick's New England Patriots defense. I've seen Josh Allen go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and put his team up with 13 seconds left in a football game to advance to the next round of the playoffs. I've seen Josh Allen knock off good defenses like the Baltimore Ravens and Indianapolis Colts in the playoffs. Justin Herbert hasn't been there yet. So I love both of these players, but if I'm going to hitch my wagon to one of them, it's going to be Josh Allen. And it's not a hard conclusion for me to arrive at because it's the talent plus who Josh is as a person, as a leader, and what he's meant for the Buffalo community. There's no way I'm not picking Josh. So you can debate Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen for number 1, and then you put the other one at number 2, and then you have this Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow conversation for that next guy in my mind. Next one comes from Tom, who says, can you please take some time to talk about the different techniques, i.e. 1-tech and 3-tech? I've just never paid a lot of attention to the trenches aside from if they are doing a good job protecting the quarterback or run blocking or the D-line getting pressure on the quarterback and stopping the run. So defensive tackles, you could play any spot on the line of scrimmage, but the 2 primary spots in a Sean McDermott defense are the 1-tech and the 3-tech. And all of that is where they align based on the offensive line. So 1-tech lines up on the outside shoulder of the center, and a 3-tech lines up on the outside shoulder of the guard. And so a 2 technique would be head up on the guard. Yeah, it's just goes like that down the line of scrimmage. A 4 technique would be head up on the offensive tackle. A 5 technique would be on the outside shoulder of the offensive tackle. But defensive tackles play 1 and 3 technique primarily. Again, a 1 technique over the outside shoulder of the center, the 3 technique, the outside shoulder of the guard. Your 1 technique is your more stout run stuffer player that owns his space, eats blocks, and just kind of wins his gap, right? That's what you want him to do, is more of a stay-at-home player that occupies space and takes on blocks and does his role. A 3 technique is more of a penetration style player that you ask to play on the other side of the line of scrimmage and shoot gaps and be more of a disruptive presence. So Ed Oliver is your 3 technique. Star Lotulelei or Daquan Jones is your 1 technique. So your explosive penetration style players at the 3, your more stout, physical, anchor against the run type players are your 1 techniques. So that's really the difference in alignment and the difference in responsibilities. The last one today comes from OTP, who says, being that the Bills are the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl based on most online betting sites, I think people are rightfully very excited and thinking this is our year. But how often do post-draft favorites win the Super Bowl? Well, I have the answer for you. Only 6 times ever has the preseason Super Bowl favorite gone on to win the Super Bowl. 2018 Patriots, 2016 Patriots, 2006 Colts, 93 Cowboys, 89 49ers, 88 49ers. So it's not that often. But I don't know, does it really have an implication? The Bills will or will not win the Super Bowl, and it won't be because they weren't the Super Bowl favorites entering the season. I actually think it's kind of impressive that 6 times the preseason favorite went on to win the thing. And this is a sarcastic statement, but is it the fact that only 6 times ever has the preseason Super Bowl favorite went on to win the Super Bowl, does that concern you more than the Bills in every season since they've been an organization since 1960, or I guess since the merger in 1970, they've never won the Super Bowl? Does that mean they can't do it? I don't know. I think these are interesting statistics. I'm mindful of them, but they do not preclude the Bills from doing it. In fact, again, like I said, 6 times it's happened. And look, 3 times since 2006. Why not the Bills, right? Why not the Bills? They paid their dues. It's time. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the podcast. Again, like I said, tomorrow's going to be a fun one. We are going to talk about the athleticism of the Buffalo Bills roster. I'm going to rank all of the players in terms of their RAS scores and just get a really good feel for just how athletic this football team is. So a lot of research is going into tomorrow's pod, and I can't wait to deliver it to you and have you guys consume it and give me some feedback. It's going to be a really fun one tomorrow. So don't miss it. Make sure you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.